The question has been asked. We're in Jude 11, the last part of Jude 11. The question has been asked as to why the three examples of verse 11 are addressed out of chronological order. They're listed in there in this order: Cain, Balaam, Korah. In chronological order would be Cain, Korah, Balaam. The question is asked, why did God do that? Why did Jude do it that way? I didn't ask that question because it didn't matter to me until I found a reasonable answer. It's kind of neat. The only reasonable answer to the question I have found is the increasing, more severe nature of their punishment. The three Greek verbs in the verse are go, abandon, and perish. Now, I gave you verse 11. I looked at my NIV and it doesn't say go, abandon, and perish, but the Greek verbs for what's in those three people, the stuff about those three people, are go, which means you go, you abandon, and then you perish. So they get worse as you go on through there. Okay, the climax with perish. The worst one is perish. Cain, the word have. Let's see. Let me get the very first one up there is the one that makes it more apparent. The NRSV, the Revised Standard, says, "Woe to them, for they go the way of Cain, and they abandon themselves to Balaam's error for the sake of gain, and they perish in Korah's rebellion." Now you can read your translation, I can read my translation, and it doesn't really matter, but that makes a point. Each one of these people are being described in ways that are much more severe as you go through the first one, the second one, and the third one. So you can read those others if you want sometime. I just thought you might want to know that. It's very interesting. The one that for Korah, that's what we're talking about today, is perish. And the Greek word for perish doesn't just mean die. You think perish, what's the first thing you think? You think die. It's English. But if you look at the Greek, it's much worse than just dying. Okay? It means fully destroyed, cutting off entirely, violently, completely perish, permanent, absolute destruction. So once you're dead, right? But, if you're watching it, it has a little different effect on you. The last one is caused to be lost by experiencing a miserable end. That's the one for perish that's associated with Korah. Okay, so we can see with each example the gravity of the description is increasing in intensity. Cain go, Balaam abandon, and Korah perish. Okay, so let's look at the perishing or the destruction of Korah. Who is Korah? Go through some of this stuff so we're going. Oh, that's the one I want. Right there. You're special, but you're not so special that you get the color copy. Okay, who is Korah? You get that. We're talking about Korah this morning, the destruction, the perishing of Korah. And I wanted to give you some background. That chart right there is a layout of the way the tribes, while they were wandering in the wilderness and out there in the Exodus, times of Exodus actually, God described to them how they were to be arranged. As it turns out, you got 3 million people out there. That's a lot of people. You got to have some organization. So here's the way God described them. He put the very center there is the tabernacle, and you can see the Shekinah glory going up. And around there, you can see there's 4 little groups around there. One just to the very bottom there is a 1. That is where Moses and Aaron and the priest would be. Going around there to 2, you have the that's the Kohathites, I guess is the way to put that. Then you go around to 3, which on the upper top there is the Gershonites, and then around to the right is the Merarites. Okay, then you have the 12 tribes out there. We're going to talk about that in a second. All that is found in Numbers 2. Okay, each family is arranged out there, 3 on each side. To the east, or to the east is that the bottom part there, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulon, and to the left, which would be to the south, is to the south of the Tabernacle. That is the tribe of Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. Then going up from the top is Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, and then going off to the right, which is to the north, is the camp of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. Now, we really never have looked at that. It's an interesting thing, it forms a cross, but nevertheless, you got 3 million people out there. They got to be organized in some way. And whenever they would leave, whenever they would pick up and leave to go to the next place they're going, they're ordered in the way that they go, and they all stay together. Tribe number 1 goes, then tribe number 2, whoever. I didn't look at the order, but they keep them together. Okay, now if you look at the names of the tribes, normally you think of the sons of Jacob as being the names of the tribes, but that's not exactly true. If you look over at Genesis 35, verse 22b, I already see I'm going to mess this up today in terms of time, but it's just too important. Genesis 35, I want you to see this just for the standpoint of history, but also to understand what Korah's going through. Genesis 35, verse 22b through 26. Let me read that to you. Now I'm going to read all 22, then we won't have to come back to it. Pay attention to this very first part. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. That doesn't have anything to do with what I'm getting ready to read to you, but we're going to have to come back to you. I just want you to remember it. We won't have to find it next time. Jacob had 12 sons. Oh, if somebody knows the answer to this, tell me now, because I didn't look it up. Sometime, Jacob got a new name. What was it? Israel. We never call him Israel. He's called Jacob. Why is that?
That's his worldly name. God's giving Israel. God speaks of things that pertain to him. It's always Israel.
Otherwise, it's Jacob. My daddy is... Okay, now I want you to look at that in light of what he just said. If you look at that verse again, it talks about Israel moved on again and pitched his tent. So Israel is Jacob. That is Jacob. Then it goes on, it says, while Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. Now, if you don't know what Wayne just said, that's pretty confusing. It sounds like you're talking about the country of Israel. But I think you're talking about Jacob. You're talking about the man. And he heard about Reuben. Now that's going to be a big deal later, but let's go on. So he lists off the 12 sons, and those 12 sons are these 12 tribes that are listed here, except for one thing. If you look at the very top up there, first of all, you won't find Joseph's name on here anywhere. It's not on here anywhere. But if you look up there at the top, and the Levites are not on here, except they're not actually listed here. I mean, you got the 12. The Levi is not one of them, and Joseph is not one of them. So how do you get 12 tribes? When Joseph was in Israel, he had 2 sons named Manasseh and Ephraim. Those are the 2 that Jacob declared to be. Did he adopt them? He adopted them, right?
No, those were Joseph's children by an Egyptian.
While he was in Egypt. But how did he get it hooked up with Jacob? Did Jacob actually adopt them?
Yes,
Yeah, so he adopted them.
Jacob adopted his children.
So those two become two of the tribes of Israel, and that was the way Joseph got his double portion that was promised to him through his kids. So Joseph's not on here. Those two are in his place. So that's how you get 12 tribes. Now, see what else I want to tell you. Oh, they talk about the number of men in verse 32. What is verse 30? Numbers. Go to Numbers 2. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Numbers 2. 2. Numbers 2, verse 32. What was there that I wanted to tell you? No, go to 33. The Merari belonged to the clans of the Mahlites and the Bushites. These are the Merarite clans. All right, now look at verse 34. Here's how they traveled. Verse 34 says, the number of all the males a month old or more who were counted was 6,200. All of the numbers that you see are based on a male count. Numbers 2, that would make more sense about what I was wanting to tell you. Because we may get to that in a minute. Come on, y'all. You have to know what I'm thinking, please.
You're reading Numbers 3.
Yeah, well, don't point out my shortcomings.
I assume that's what we need.
He's got a wife for that.
See, yeah, I'll hear about that at home. I don't need to hear about it here. All right, Numbers 2:33. That's where you were. That's not where I was. Okay.
I have no idea.
I was Numbers 2:32. I want you to notice these are men that are counted. These are the Israelites counted according to their families. All those in the camps by their divisions. Number 603,550 men. It doesn't say that there. It says it over in chapter 3 where I just read. But these numbers are men. They have wives, so if every one of them's married, it doubles it. That's 1.2 million. Then they have 2.1 kids each. I mean, I don't know how many children they had, not 2.1. But you get over 3 million pretty easy, pretty quick. Easy to get there. Then you look at verse 34. This is how they traveled. 34. So the Israelites did everything the Lord commanded Moses. Everything he commanded Moses is what they did. That is the way they encamped under their standards, and that is the way they set out, each with his clan and family. So they let all these groups in this picture here, they traveled that way. Now, go down to the part down here. Look, family tree looking stuff. You've got Levi, who was one of the sons of Jacob, had 3 sons, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The ones we're talking about today are the descendants of Kohath. He had 4 sons, Amram, Ishar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Amram had Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. You have to go to Numbers 26:59 to find that if you want to go look. That's where you can look. Okay, and Ishar had a son named Korah. Now you see why I'm doing all this. All of those are Levites. That's what I want you to know. This, for some reason, this thick skull didn't pick up on this till I studied this lesson. They were all Levites, but they are not all priests. Did you know that? They're the priestly tribe. The Levites are the priestly tribe, but they're not. They all had functions related to the worship place, the temple, the tabernacle, they did the work. Some of them were priests. The priests were was Aaron. Aaron was the priest. Moses was the prophet. Okay, so then you go over to the right section, which is where the words are right there. You see that? It's not on mine. Mine's all scribbled up. So you've got the descendants of Aaron's are priests, and you see the Gershonites have a number 2. Oh, let me look on here. Yeah, the descendants of Aaron are are priests, and you go up there up here on the diagram, you see the number 1 right there. That's where Moses and the priests are. Then the number 2 list there is, the Kohathites. And then you go down, number 3 are the Gershonites, and number 4 are the Merarites. Now here's what I want to do. I want you to go to Numbers 3, and I want you to see what their duties were. They're all Levites, but they're not all priests. Go to 3, verse 21. Let's just look at part of it. Go to chapter 3 of Numbers, verse 25 and 26. These are the Gershonites. This is their responsibility. At the tent of meeting, the Gershonites are responsible, that's the tabernacle, are responsible for the care of the tabernacle and tent, its coverings, the curtain at the entrance of the tent of the meeting, the curtains of the courtyard, the curtain at the entrance to the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle and altar, and the ropes and everything related to their use. The Gershonites took care of those things. Whatever had to be done, whenever it's time to pick it all up and move there, okay, they moved it. Then if you look at verse 31 and 32, this is what the Kohathites do. It's interesting. These are responsible for the care of the ark, that's the Ark of the Covenant, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the articles of the sanctuary used in ministering, the curtain, and everything related to their use. The chief leader of the Levites was Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest. He was appointed over those who were responsible for the care of the sanctuary. So they had to take care of the holy things. Okay, that's what I just call them, the holy things. Then if you go to verse 36 and 37, these are the Merarites. Have y'all ever heard of the Merarites? Me either. Merarites. They're right there. That's the Gershonites in the family tree. It's the 3 sons of Levi. Merari is one of them. And those are the 3 groups that we're reading about right now. They each had functions. Yeah, no, I saw that. Tabernacle. I was going to point that out. You finally found it, caught me in another mistake. All right, so look at verse 36 and 37, chapter 3. The Merarites were appointed to take care of the frames of the tabernacle, its crossbars, posts, bases, all its equipment, and everything related to their use, as well as the posts of the surrounding courtyard with their bases, tent pegs, and ropes. Now, you have to be reminded of something. All of this stuff is because they are nomads. Whenever they left, they had to, it's like this big circus tent. They had to take it all down, they had to roll it up a certain way, they had to transport it a certain way, and each one of these tribes had certain, of these 3, had certain responsibilities, and they're defined. Now, well, there's 3 million people. They better be.
Somebody had to organize
Okay, so I want you to realize, think about the Kohathites. They handled the holy things, not the tent post, not the tent pegs. They handled the Ark of the Covenant. They handled everything that's holy. Okay? The Kohathites. That's where Korah is. Korah is in the Kohathites. Okay, now let me get on with it. So, what are they to do? Let's see. Priests. Yeah. Yeah. Number one. Let's start with one. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody opens the door. Okay, so I want y'all to know that because it's important because of the importance of what the Kohathites do. They are responsible for moving the most holy things. They didn't get to touch them. They didn't prepare them. The priests actually prepare them to be moved. They put blankets over them and stuff. It's all defined in there what they were supposed to be. Then the Kohathites are the ones that moved it. That's a very important. Why would you feel puffed up because you were the one chosen to move the Ark of the Covenant? I mean, that is an important job. I want you to realize that. That's Korah's area. All right. Look at chapter 4. I want you to notice this. Verse 4. Well, look at verse 4. This is the work of the Kohathites in the tent of meeting, the care of the most holy things. That's not my words. I've been saying that. That comes straight from the description in the Bible. And that is communicated by God to Moses. Moses didn't just sit down and draw up this organizational chart. God told him, here's the way we're going to do it. The Kohathites are going to do this part, and here's what they're going to do. The Merarites are going to do this. The Gershonites are going to do this. Moses didn't make those decisions. He just communicated God's decisions to them. Verse 15 says let's go to chapter 4, verse 15. After Aaron, have y'all heard this stuff before? Good. After Aaron and his sons have finished covering the holy furnishings and all the holy articles, and when the camp is ready to move, the Kohathites are to come to do the carrying, but they must not touch the holy things or they will die. Okay, did you ever think about that? I got to move the Ark of the Covenant, but they say if I touch it, I'm going to die. Okay, so what am I going to do? So you go over to verse 17 to 20, and God makes a special provision for that. Look at 17 to 20. This is important because we're talking about Korah. 17 to 20 says, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, see that the Kohathite tribal clans are not cut off from the Levites, so that they may live and not die when they come near the most holy things. Do this for them. Aaron and his sons are to go into the sanctuary and assign to each man his work and what he is to carry. But the Kohathites must not go in to look at the holy things even for a moment, or they will die. Now, what has happened here, God has made a special provision for the Kohathites to make provision for them being in close proximity to these holy things. See, they're not supposed to touch any of those holy things, not just the Ark of the Covenant. It's any of it. Okay? So special. Look at Exodus 25. Exodus 25. I hope y'all see all this before we get through. Exodus 25, verses 10 to 16. That's Genesis. I got to get into Exodus. Y'all have accused me of messing up again. Exodus 25. Exodus 25, verses 10 to 16. Have them make a chest of acacia wood. This is about the ark. 2.5-inch cubits long, a cubit and a half wide, and a cubit and a half high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out. Make a gold molding around it. Here we go. Cast 4 gold rings for it, and cast them to its 4 feet. Pass them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert the poles into the rings of the sides of the chest to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Then put in the ark the testimony which I will give you. All right. So they make the Ark of the Covenant. It's got rings. It's got poles. Put poles in there and don't ever take them out. Yeah. Don't touch the ark though. It's got current going through it and it will kill you. Don't touch it. You touch poles, that's what they moved it with. But what's interesting is they didn't move it in a way that your brain would tell you the easiest way to move it. What I would say is, what we'll do is use those poles, we'll pick that thing up and we'll set it in the back of the truck. Wrong. We're going to carry it. Korah's saying, I got to carry that thing. Okay? We're going to talk about some more stuff here in a minute. The ark and holy things are not to be trucked so that the holiness of God will be maintained. The first thing when you start touching things with human hands that is holy to God, what does it do to them? The holy things. Defiles them. I think the testimony may be the Ten Commandments. So, first thing that happened, I just kept working on the car. I got grease on my fingers and I need to remove the mercy seat. I just wipe them off and pick it up like this. No. It defiles it. You cannot touch it. And the poles are there to make sure you don't touch it, because all of these holy things are God's holy things, and He does not want His stuff to be defiled. All right. Yeah, that's right. They were covered up. They were covered up when they moved, so nobody could see them. I'm just hoping I'm carrying the Ark of the Covenant, because I can't see what's in there. Okay, so here's a side note, just so we get some perspective. This is much later, but to make a point, the Philistines stole the ark. You know the story? You just studied it, right? They stole the ark. Weird stuff started happening, right? And they said, we got to get rid of this thing. So let's call David. What's his number? We punch in his number on his cell phone. David, you got to come get this ark. So David, they discussed it, said, okay, we'll go get the ark. They get over there, and what do? They loaded it in a wagon. Am I wrong?
Yeah, when they brought it back to Solomon.
Yeah, they're bringing it back. David said, hey, that's the quickest way to get out of Dodge. Let's put it in a wagon and we'll go. And then what happened? Here's the part. These are two stories, what I've just told you. These are two accounts of things in the Bible that need to be always told together so you don't lose perspective. Never touch the ark. Always carry it wherever it goes. David put it in a wagon. The oxen stumbled and it started to fall out, and Uzzah grabbed it to keep it from falling. And if you tell those two stories separate, it looks like his heart was in the right place, and yet God killed him anyway.
Did he die?
He died. He touched the ark. God said that's what's going to happen. But you're saying he kept the ark from falling. Why would God be so bad? The reason God was so bad was because he said, don't ever put it in a wagon. You don't put it in the wagon, the thing wouldn't be falling. Does that make more sense? Your daddy says, don't go up there on the roof. But my ball went up there, so I climbed up the ladder and got it. While I was up there, I fell off the roof and broke my arm. So he's glad you didn't get killed, but he's mad at you because you broke your arm because you weren't supposed to be on the roof. That was the situation. Don't put it in the wagon. If it was not in the wagon. And so the thing is, he was not a hero. What I read was, yes, he died, but 1 Chronicles 13:10 says God's anger burned against him and God struck him down. It was not a final act, it was not an act of heroism, but a final act of desecration and presumption. Arrogance and presumption. Because that ark was not supposed to be in that wagon. That's just the easiest way to get it home. To be obedient to God, to perform a task defined to you by Him, you do it when He wants it done, how He wants it done, and where He wants it done. If you modify any of those three things, what are you, Wayne? You're disobedient. He told you how, when, and where. If you say, well, I really want to take Jan to the movies tonight, so I'm going to do it a little bit earlier because it's more convenient for me. That puts me in disobedience. Okay? God said, carry that ark wherever it goes. Don't put it in a wagon. Yes. He did know that. Now, this is the job. Moving that thing is what the Korahites, the Kohathites are supposed to do. Their job is to move that stuff. Okay, so let me keep going. So why is this information about Uzzah so important to our understanding of Jude 11? Uzzah's the guy that touched it and he died. It is because God's holiness is at stake, and the job of maintaining the things related to that holiness is important, and it is the job of Korah. That's where we are right now, right this very second. His job is a very important job of maintaining the holy things of God. And he had to do it by his hands and his shoulders. But Korah was not happy with his place in life. Even his position relative to his placement with the tribes he considered inferior. Remember where they were? The Kohathites were right out in front of Reuben's tribe. Do you remember what we read about Reuben before we read the sons of Jacob? What did I tell you to remember? What did Reuben do? Remember? Yeah. And who knew about it? Jacob knew about it. Okay? Yeah. Israel. Jacob. The spiritual Jacob. All right, now, he assigned his place in front of the tribe of Reuben, the son who sinned with his father's concubine, while Moses and Aaron were in front of Judah, the largest and the most influential tribe. So right away, you're getting this conflict festering in Korah's head. I got to be out here in front of Reuben, and he gets to be over there in front of Judah. In Jacob's final prophetic pronouncement, he even placed Reuben in a position of inferiority. Look at Genesis 49, verse 3 and 4. Genesis 49. I want you to see this because I'm telling you, I don't want you to think I'm making it up. I can spin a pretty good yarn sometimes, but I'm not making this up. Jacob is dying, I think, and he calls the clan around him, and he makes these prophecies about each of the sons. In 3 and 4, he's talking about Reuben. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. Sounds pretty good, right? Look at verse 4. Turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel, for you went up on your father's bed on my couch and defiled it. So Jacob himself has kind of demoted Reuben because of the way he lived, because of the sin that he had with this concubine. So we know Reuben has got an inferior place, and Korah feels it. I'm right out in front of him, and Moses, the goody two-shoes Moses and Aaron are sitting right out there in front of Judah. Okay? So Numbers 7, verses 1 to 3, we don't need to read it, but there was an offering from the leaders of Israel made to Moses, or to the tabernacle, of 6 carts and 12 oxen. We're working down to, you're going to see what's really bugging Korah. 6 oxen and 6 carts and 12 oxen. Moses gave the wagons to the... Oh, you're fine. Ask them why they're not here. So Moses takes these wagons and oxen. You know, it's like making a gift to the church, and then the church makes a gift to somebody that needs it. 6 wagons and 12 oxen to the church, to the tabernacle, and Moses gives them all to the Merarites and the Gershonites. Those are the ones that had to carry all the tent poles and the tent and all that stuff. But he gave nothing to the Kohathites, to Korah's people. Why is that? They didn't need them. Why is that? I got me a good acacia pole to do my work. We've got to carry that stuff everywhere we go. Now, if I were Korah, I would be saying, I just don't get it. Moses makes up all these rules. He's thinking Moses is making up these rules. That's an important thing to realize. Korah thinks Moses is making these rules up himself. He won't give God any credit for it. All right, so Numbers 7, 6 through 9 makes that distribution that I just told you about. Korah was jealous of Moses, God's prophet, and he was jealous of Aaron's, God's priests. God had just dealt with the Israelites and the 12 spies. Remember that story? They were going to get ready to go in the promised land. They sent 12 spies and came back, can't fight the giants, and so they lost faith in God. That just happened just a couple of chapters ago. Now Korah and some Reubenites rose up against Moses. Look at Numbers 16, verses 1 to 3. Korah is a Kohathite. Korah is the man's name, and he's in the Kohath, whatever you call it, leg of the family. Leg of the family. Yeah. Kohath was a son of Levi. Yeah. Yeah, we're not to that part yet. Right. Korah's the one that's really aggravated about all this. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so what was I going to do? Number 16, 1 to 3. Korah, the son of Ishar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and certain Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, became insolent and rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. Verse 3. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, you have gone, he's saying to Moses, you have gone too far. The whole community meaning these 250 men, are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourself above the Lord's assembly? So what he's saying is, you weren't elected to your position of supreme leader of the Israelites. You just set yourself up there, and all these people just followed you. These guys, me included, these 250 guys are every bit as holy as you are. They're all holy. All right. So they were rude, arrogant, and showed no respect for Moses and no respect for God. They think Moses is doing all this his own. They claim they were holy and they are as good as Moses is. So how can you choose to set yourself apart, they said. What this means is that Korah feels every bit qualified to interpret Scripture, lay down the law, provide leadership and direction for the people. These are the things those who are above the Lord's assembly do. That's what he said. You set yourself above the Lord's assembly. Well, being up there, these are the things he did, interpret Scripture and all those other things that I said. That means we're as holy as that. We should be priests too. Korah wants to be a priest. He's a Levite, but he's not a priest. He is holy as well as the whole community is holy. That was in verse 3. Moses in verse 4 to 7 says, we will find out who is holy in the morning. It's got a bad sound to it. In the morning, we're going to find out who's holy. And we'll choose, and God will choose who is holy. Moses goes to Korah and the 250. He gives them, Korah and the 250 members, a priestly function to do in the morning. In the morning, here's what I want you to do. It's like with incense and waving these things around. It's things only priests do. He said, this is what I want you to do. So verses 8 through 11 is where we are. Let's look at that, chapter 16. Verses 8 to 11. Moses also said to Korah, now listen, you Levites, isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community and brought you near to him to do the work of the Lord's tabernacle? He's pointing out to Korah, God has chosen you for a very special thing to do. You move all the holy things. Everybody else doesn't get to do that. Then he says, to stand before the community minister. In verse 10 says, he has brought you and all your fellow Levites near himself, but now you are trying to get the priesthood too. Korah wants to be a priest. It is against the Lord that you and all your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him? Okay, so he's got the face-to-face with Korah. He points out how special the job is. That's why I went through all of this stuff beforehand. Talking about having to carry the stuff. That's a very important job. It's hard, breaking work to carry all that stuff. But it has a purpose. And that great, wonderful purpose was given to Korah. And he's griping about it. That's the bottom line. He said, I'm as good as you are, Moses. I think, and Aaron too. I think I ought to be a priest. All right, verse 13 to 16. Oh, I didn't need to read that. Moses summons Dathan and Abiram and all those guys, a couple of those guys, said, I want you to come down here and we're going to talk about some stuff. They said, we're not going. This is the afternoon in the morning. Okay, it's the afternoon. He said, we're not coming. He said, and it gets back to the same old thing they're always whining about. You could have left us in Egypt to die, but you dragged us out here in the desert to die. It's one of those same old things. It was an apostate comment. Blame it on Moses. blame it on God, blame it on everybody. You know, it's a better way. We know what it was. So it's an apostate way of looking at things. So, verses 18 to 21 says this. So each man took his censer. This was the priestly function that he gave them to do, and now they're getting ready to do it. So each man took his censer, put fire and incense in it, and stood with Moses and Aaron at the entrance to the tent of meeting. When Korah had gathered all his followers in opposition to them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the entire assembly. Whoa. That's the Shekinah glory we're talking about. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, separate yourselves from this assembly so I can put an end to them. Separate yourself from the assembly so I can put an end to them, meaning wipe them out. Sorry, please forgive me for that. Verse 21 says that. In verse 22 to 24, but Moses and Aaron fell face down and cried out, O God, God of the spirits of all mankind, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins? He's got Korah and 250 other guys. He said, I'm going to wipe them all out. And Moses says, why would you do that when it's only one guy? So Moses, in his head, is looking at this as a situation where Korah is the guilty party. Why are you going to kill the rest of them? Those 250 people. Yeah. He said, I'm going to wipe them all out. And Moses said, wait a minute. I don't want you to do that. Yep. Yeah, he's saying the real sin was with. Yeah. Yeah. So, going back to I read 22 to 24. I'm already. Yeah, Moses says, 22 to 24, Moses falls face down, O God, God of the spirits of mankind, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins? So then the Lord says to Moses, say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Move those 250 guys away. So you're thinking, well, they're safe. God has relented. So, it looks like he relented. All right, let's look at 25 to 34. Korah, Dathan. I didn't say to read that. I'm going to read it. 25 to 34. Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the assembly, those 250 guys, move back from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of their sins. So they moved away from the tents of Korah. Oh, me. Dathan and Abiram had come out and were standing with their wives, children, and little ones at the entrance to their tents. Then Moses said, this is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all things, and that it was not my idea. Have you ever read this before? Get ready. Los Angeles has got nothing on these guys. If these men die a natural death and experience only what actually happens to men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt. All right, let me keep going. Verse 31. As soon as he finished saying all of this, here it is, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them with their household and all Korah's men and all their possessions. Then they went down alive into the grave with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, the earth is going to swallow us too. Okay, So the 250 guys are safe. They didn't get swallowed down in there, right? Look at verse 35. And the fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. Did that answer your question? God did not relent. He just said, okay, we're not going to swallow them up in this big sinkhole. They were devoured by fire. That's exactly right. This problem was an attack on God's assignment of service to people. You know, Paul talks about gifts. Everybody gets a different gift. Some are more elevated than others, but everybody gets one. None of them are more important. It was the same here. Korah wanted to do something else, and what he did was drag the whole, I guess he would have dragged the whole community down, but he ended up getting 250 people to go with him down there. And so it's a pretty big group, and he had elevated himself to a point where he felt like he was every bit as holy as Moses and God, and the very fact that he had those thoughts means that he wasn't. So he's a total apostate, and all those people, you know, it goes all the way back to everything we talked about, studying about Exodus history. The mixed multitude were in there stirring up trouble, getting everybody upset, and they all followed them and went murmuring against Moses the whole time they were out there. And this is more of the same. He says, I want your job, just like what you said. I think I'm good enough to do it. Okay. Not only was Korah an arrogant apostate, but he dragged Dathan and Abram into it too. And at the same time, they dragged in the 250 guys too. They showed the same kind of apostasy the Israelites did with the report from the spies. I think I already said that. They just lost their faith in God. They'd rather have faith in Korah rather than faith in Moses and their faith in God. The entire 250-man assembly is considered apostate by God, and he destroyed all of them by fire. Now here's the thing. It doesn't matter that they followed apostates. The fact that they followed an apostate made them an apostate too. God doesn't care why you followed. You just did. All right, go through here. The 250 men were once listed as holy in verse 3. They had been influenced by and followed Korah. They are apostate too. They condone all forms of rebellion against God's truth. They are the type who would pack all leadership positions in apostate but professing churches with unsaved people. Now that's pretty wild. That's what John Phillips says about those guys. They are just the kind of guys that is saying it's all about me. I'm going to make the decisions, and who they would put in positions of leadership would be apostates. You want an apostate to be your leader? They would despise evangelicals and fundamentals as narrow-minded, arrogant people. All right, nearly through. The way Phillips puts it, in Korah's case, his judgment was swift and sure because he was to be an apostate example to them for the rest of time. I want you to hear this, Blake. I'm going to say that again. In Korah's case, his judgment was swift and sure because he was to be an apostate example to them for the rest of time. You want your name in lights? His name's in lights. But everybody for the rest of time who reads the Bible are going to know who Korah was and why he was lifted up as an example. He is the one, though, of those who chooses for themselves the service of God, and he treats the ministry as a profession rather than a high calling open only to those who have been washed in the blood of the Lamb and who will discover that God's displeasure is a terrible thing.